We're
Wanna
gonna,
do me
I'm gonna
in?
make a, I'm gonna make a motion.
Let me get up out the way.
I don't have the votes, but I'm still gonna found it, Terrace. I mean, we can. I don't know, he's, and there's no signs out there, nobody knows they have no street. We can make a motion.
How you gonna go?
Yeah, she's on board, whatever we want.
Yes, behind the pipe.
Like your blouse, it's cute.
Make a motion. So I can't waste my stuff. I need you to.
Hello.
So.
Firefighters know.
Show it to you. Bag will be here.
Okay.
I see what you be doing. Test, test, 1, 2. Test. House sound, 1, 2, 3. That over here. Test 1 2. Test house sound 1 2 3. House sound.
We're here.
I always.
Sorry.
Good evening. I would like to take this time to welcome all those that are in attendance here at the historic Philander Smith College for our special call meeting today, Tuesday, June 29th, for the Little Rock City Board of Directors, where we will take up our resolution from 2 Tuesdays ago as it relates to the sales tax initiative. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Director Hendricks,
Present.
Director Richardson,
Here.
Director Webb,
Here.
Director Peck. Here. Director Wright. Here. Director Wyrick. Present. Director Compuris. Present. Director Phillips.
Present.
Director Adcock. Present. Vice Mayor Hines.
Present.
Mayor Scott.
Present. We'll now have an invocation. Director Hendricks, if you would mind, since we are in your ward, Ward 1, if you mind giving us the invocation for tonight.
Will we bow, please? My prayer today is that we would do those things that are fitting and satisfactory to our constituents, to the people that we serve daily. Let the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in God's sight. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. May we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is this way to our right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, since the agenda item has already been read, but I guess failed due to the procedure, if you would, Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution to state the uses of the 1% Rebuild the Rock Sales and Compensating Use Tax Funds upon approval of the tax levy by the voters at an election to be held on September 14th, 2021, and for other purposes.
Thank you so much. We do not see any,
I have my hand up.
Vice Mayor, I'm still speaking. We do not see any cards for discussion. Vice Mayor Hines, you do have your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Much to my surprise, I'm getting a 2:15 email with no calls from you or the city manager that we were going to have a special call meeting. Most of Little Rock, it does not surprise me that the reason we have no public comment cards on this resolution is that the public isn't aware of it. And for administration said they were going to be most clear and transparent on record. This lacks that. I move to table this till next Tuesday night at our 6 p.m. meeting.
Before we take up,
Point of order, Mayor.
what is the point of order?
Motion to table with a second is not debatable.
Sure thing. There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Roll call.
I haven't even decided to vote, Vice Mayor. Nays have it. Would you like to say that now? Nays have it, unless you want to say it now. Roll call from Director Wright.
Director Richardson,
Nay.
Director Webb, Director Peck,
No.
Director Wright, Director Wyrick, Director Compuris,
No.
Director Phillips,
No.
Director Adcock,
Yes.
Director Hendricks,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hines,
Yes.
4-6.
Thank
4
you.
ayes, 6 nays.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, I still have a question.
I'm still speaking, Vice Mayor Hines. We need to put a point in for decorum for you. So please let me finish. Number one, Director Hines, Vice Mayor Hines, rather. I don't know when you received a phone call or email, but we sent this out on Monday. All is required when you do a special call meeting is a 2-hour notice to the press. I, as chair, can call a special meeting at that period of time. And we made sure that we're going to have the appropriate means. That's the reason why, because we already had a 4 o'clock agenda meeting. All we're doing is replacing the agenda meeting to start with a special call meeting to finish the business from 2 Tuesdays ago. Mr. Attorney, would you please share the ruling on special call meetings?
State statute says that, and the city ordinance says you follow the state statute. The state statute says that the mayor has the authority to call a special meeting, or a special meeting can be called by a majority of the governing body, which would be 6 members.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Hines.
I have 2 questions. There is a change in the resolution on, I think, the community centers from 12 million to 14 million. Where did that 2 million come from? Was it a error in the original document that was supposed to be 14 million, or did you take that $2 million out of another line item in there?
Actually, Vice Mayor Hines, the last time we had 12 million allotted, we never had 12 million allotted for a community center capital projects fund, ever. So I think you may be looking at a revised notion from very few months ago. But 2 Tuesdays ago, it shared 14 million, so there was no change. No one on this committee asked any questions of the resolution. I hope you would have read it, but nothing's changed since 2 Tuesdays ago.
I have read it. There's been so many versions of the resolution, I wasn't quite sure, so I just wanted to make sure before I.
It's the same resolution from 2 Tuesdays ago that you voted against.
That's fine.
Now,
I read
Director
a
Phillips.
statement. I had said I had 2 questions, and
Oh, sorry.
I find it odd that this board, my fellow directors, would slam this through. We have an opportunity to hear feedback from our citizens usually, but this is set up to not allow that. There wasn't even a sign out on the main boulevard noting that we were having a meeting here today. I noticed as I pulled in. But, I think at the very least, this resolution should be amended. I make a motion to amend the resolution to, let me finish to take 15 million away from the zoo, to put it to the West Central Community Center, to take 40 million from the early childhood education, to split it 20 million to public works for street and drainage improvements, and 20 million to public safety for fire and police.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
The
Roll
Ayes
call,
have
Mayor.
it.
The motion's not in order, Mayor. The board imposed a rule as to the introduction of legislation by a board member, and the rule is that it has to be given 2 weeks before the agenda meeting, before the board meeting. The ordinance just got approved. If it had been a motion to amend the resolution before the approval, then that would have been appropriate, but it wasn't.
Thank you so much, nay. Still have it.
Roll call.
All right, there's a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Director Richardson,
Nay.
Director Webb, Director Peck,
No.
Director Wright, Director Wyrick,
No.
Director Compuris, Director Phillips,
No.
Director Adcock,
Yes.
Director Hendricks,
Nay.
Vice Mayor Hines,
Yes.
3-7.
Thank you so much, Director Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, if you could, for those watching in the audience, explain what the vote just was. I know sometimes we go through votes and our constituents don't understand what we just voted on the first time as it relates to the resolution.
Thank you so much, Director Phillips. And then also, I'm going to ask that Mr. Manager Moore, before we do that, will you share, I believe there's been significant amount of notification. I don't want you to ever be accused of not notifying the public on certain things. Could you share? I think everyone's pretty aware of why we're here today.
Members of the board, was informed yesterday that there'll be a special call meeting today. The mayor outlined the process, which I think the city attorney also outlined as far as proper notification. So, and this is difficult with the transition from Robinson to here, and then we'll be somewhere else next month. But as far as the proper and legal notification, that did occur.
But also the location. I believe there was a question about this location. I believe you notified everyone. Could you?
Correct. The location was noted in the press release that we'd be at the Harris Auditorium on the campus of Philander Smith College.
Thank you so much. And in response to Director Phillips' question, for those who are watching online, we have a 4 o'clock special call meeting. Immediately following this will be our agenda meeting. We have a resolution that failed 541 2 weeks ago. That same resolution, which lays out the spending allocations for the Rebuild the Rock sales tax proposal, failed 541. It is being brought back before the board for transparency to the electorate of knowing what will be allocated if and when this tax is passed. We hope it is passed. And so that is the reason for the resolution being brought back up again, because we do have a sales tax election on September the 14th. We want to ensure that the public is aware of the spending allocations. It's been brought before the board. Vice Mayor Hines attempted to make some amendments. The city attorney shared his thoughts on those amendments in the procedural process. There was a vote taken. Nays had it in stopping the amendments. I believe it was 3 yeses, 7, with 3 yeses to amend, 7 nays to amend. And so now we'll go to Director Wyrick, who has her hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for holding this meeting so we can discuss this and let everybody know what they're going to be voting on in September. I have two questions. One of them has to do with.
Excuse me, Director Wyrick.
I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor Hines, if we have Director Wyrick who's speaking.
Have a conversation with.
But you were interrupting. Director Wyrick, please carry on.
Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah. Thank you for having this meeting so we can discuss this, so the people that are going to vote on it in September will have a better idea of what's in the sales tax package. I have 2 questions. One of them deals with item 21 on your list of items. It's public safety vehicle and apparatus replacement. I received a letter, and I think most of the board did today, talking about the trucks that needed to be replaced. They came up with $23.3 million of truck replacements that need to be done. And when I was talking with the the fire chief, he indicated that he was supportive of the sales tax, and he would get between 5 and 6 trucks a year from these dollars. So I'm trying to understand how we help the fire department. They were really supportive of the 2011 election.
You mean the fire union?
I'm sorry?
You mean the fire union?
I'm sorry?
The fire union or fire department?
The fire department.
Okay.
To me, it's all the same. It may be different to you, but to me, it's the people within the fire department. And so in 2011, they were very helpful in getting the sales tax passed. But, if they're not behind us in this sales tax, then I'm not sure if they'll work against us or just stay neutral. So I'm trying to help them understand where we are with the items. We only have 37 37.2 million, I say only, we have 37.2 million for that line item. Their requests are 23.3, and that's just for apparatus. There are other things that they've identified that need to happen. I believe we added 10 million to the item 21, and so I'm trying to understand what the impact of that 10 million was, and then what are the additional things that are already in the 737 point, the original amount.
I don't think.
Fire Station 24 out in Stagecoach, we all went to the grand opening a couple of years ago, was supposed to have 2 fire trucks and 12 individuals that worked there. And that was from the 2011 sales tax. And I don't know if that money is still out there for those, for that particular fire truck or fire station, or if there's money in this budget for that. I also hear about Fire Station 11 on University. They have an apparatus down and they've been working out of a pickup truck. And so it sounds like that we are in dire need of additional fire trucks. So help us understand what this package is doing for the fire department, if you can.
Yes, ma'am. I would ask if both Fire Chief Hubbard and Director Willie Hinton would come to the floor. But as they're coming, as you know, I was not here in 2011, and I know there were some promises made 10 years ago, and I do understand there were some. That's another reason why I highly encourage that we not have a sunset because many times you're based on the will of the sales tax dollar. And so if those dollars don't come into fruition due to the purchasing of residents, certain things may not always be fulfilled based on a monetary standpoint.
The 5/8 though is going to continue, and those 12 firefighters should have been in
And-
that.
And I'm going,
So-
and that's should have been, and having those dollars there in those period of time is a different thing. That's why, Mr. Moore, if you'll speak through why those didn't show up over the 10-year period of time prior to me coming in 2019.
Sure. If I remember correctly, that station was going to have 18 firefighters and 2 trucks. And the
Total of
decision,
18. Okay, I understood it was like 12.
it's 12 now. And so the decision was made based on the revenue. And remember, we received about 95% of the revenue that we expected. We had that 2% growth factor, which in 2011 we felt was very conservative, if everybody remembers. But we know what happened after 2011, and we saw 0 growth and negative growth. So we made the commitment. We bought the property for $500,000, and the decision was made to go ahead and build a fire station for a capacity of 18 and a second truck. But from an operating standpoint, we knew that we could only staff it with 12. So it was scheduled for 18. It has 12, and it has room for that second truck and additional firefighters. But it's not in the current allocation.
So it's not in the new allocation, and you're saying it's no longer in the sales tax package from 2011.
Well, again, we fell short on revenue. We had about 95%. So the things that we didn't borrow on short-term note that we just accumulated, and that was one of the projects that we just didn't have enough revenue. But we did feel like at that point, I felt like it was important to get the station built.
Okay. What about the breathing apparatus that we promised them that we would do? It's my understanding that we've fallen short on providing those as well. Where are those in the line of?
The breathing apparatus?
Yeah. What do you call those?
A turnout gear.
Yes.
Oh,
Who said that? Who said that?
Yeah, we're on target. We're on target for that. We were doing it in 3 phases, I believe. We've already done the first phase. We'll do the second phase this year. So we're on target
Okay.
there.
Will that take care of all the firefighters when we?
I think after the 3rd Chief, I think after the third phase, it will.
We have that order on placement now. At the conclusion of this order, we will be 50 firefighters short, which we'll take care of the first of 2022.
Okay, so they're in the mill to be taken care of.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay. All right, so, with the, item 21, it's talking about apparatus replacements. How many fire trucks will we be able to get? Because I'm looking at a list here of trucks that, need to be moved to reserve status or replaced. And I just got this today, so I haven't really digested all the information in here. So, and I know, Chief, you probably eat, sleep, and dream how many trucks that we need. So, how is this going to help us, and how many trucks will we be able to replace with this money?
Mayor, and to the other members of the board, Director Warwick, this here particular incentive will benefit the fire department greatly. We have an established replacement plan where we're looking at approximately 2 to 3 fire trucks replacement each year, as explained to members of the local union. The mayor explained if revenue exceeded on certain years, we could get up to 5 fire trucks per year or more. It's just according to how those revenues come in.
Okay.
But as it currently stands, this here will allow us to have an aggressive replacement plan for our apparatus.
And it done within the 10 years, provided the money comes in as we think it will.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe that'll be helpful to the firefighters to understand what the plan is. The second question that I had deals with the excuse me, the early childhood education. And I know Dean Compuris worked on that, and I think it would be helpful for everyone to know what the plan is for that. I wonder if he could outline that for us.
Sure, and Director Compuris is definitely well equipped. We also, Director, you want to take the lead on that, or do you want Dr. Parker? I didn't know. We'll let Director Compuris take the lead on that.
To take care of early childhood development. I spent about 3 weeks reading the literature, talking to the experts in the state, being referred to different places. And what I found is that the federal government on a yearly basis puts $80 million into the state for early childhood development. The state puts in about $10 million. The $80 million, Tanya has to go to the state, but they just say fine because it's appropriated to go. Because of the Recovery Act, we have an extra $40 million for the next 3 or 4 years. I then looked at the waiting list for people trying to get this money, and there's 0 people on the waiting list. I then looked at the efficacy of early childhood development when you start looking at people from 6 months to 2 years of age. Betty Campbell did a lot of work on this a long time ago and showed that when you look at 4 and 5-year-olds, it helps. If you look at the physiology of a child's brain at about 6 or 8 months, there's a remarkable change in the size of the brain, the blood flow to the brain, and the learning capacity. I then looked at something I did not understand before, but I do now, and that is the state regulates and ranks every daycare center in the city and the state based on a category of 1 to 3. We have the vast majority of 1s in our city, which are the lowest level, and we have very few 3s. So I then took the leap of that I'm almost 74 years of age, and I've been looking at childhood education for the whole time I've been here, and I have bemoaned the fact that we are not getting the young people who need early childhood education or education in this city adequately educated. I do not know if this is the Pandora for taking care of education, but after looking at this, I made a proposal back to the mayor that we do something that is, as far as my reading of the literature, is not being done in the United States. And that is that we take the money that we appropriated for this and we do not put it in vouchers. That we spend 4 years working with this college, the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, Pulaski Tech, the school district, and we create 4 centers of excellence and daycare centers where we concurrently train the people in daycare centers to do the things that really may make a difference in these young people. We also create the opportunity for people to come to these daycare centers where you're talking about nursing centers at Baptist or at UAMS or at ULR or social workers at these different schools, where they can come and learn how to take care of these people and further their education. And the goal is to have in our city only class 2 and 3 daycare centers. After 4 years, if the board feels like we have expanded capacity and we don't have enough money to get kids in there, then by a vote of this board, that decision could be made to do that. Now, there are a lot of questions in my mind that come up when you think about this. Number one, is this the providence of city government? And a number of people on this board will tell you no. Is there a need to make a difference in childhood education? Yes. As I look around, I don't see another opportunity to do this. I think that this would be, if done correctly, a very innovative program that may well set us apart from anybody else. And that's not ever the reason to do anything. But if it works, then it could be duplicated pretty easily anywhere in the United States. And I'm willing to take the risk to spend this much money to do this. Now, I know that Lance would rather spend this on roads and public safety. And I'd like to spend another $4 million a year on those things. But there has to be a time in my mind where we start talking about how we take care of kids and provide them the opportunities in the future. And as I said, nothing that I have seen during my time has worked as well as any of us would like to have. And so that's the reason that I made the proposal to the mayor, and that's the reason that I'm willing to go along with this at this point in time to see if it works. And it may be an utter failure, and you can call it compurist folly, but I think it is something that I can stand behind to give the opportunity to see if it works in this city.
Thank you so much, Director Compuris. I do know Dr. J. Barf is online. If you guys will unmute, Dr. J. Barf, any additional comments to add? I know Dr. Compuris gave a really good explanation. Dr. J. Barf?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I apologize for not being there in person, but had some planned travel. I think Director Compuris has done a very good job of overviewing kind of the nuts and bolts of the program. I mean, this program from the beginning was always about quality and access, and what through the conversations and negotiations that we've had with Director Compuris, we've really decided to put quality first. getting the quality enhanced in terms of our early childhood opportunities in our community, and then move towards accessibility, making full use of the opportunities we have in terms of federal funding, both right now, but in the years ahead. I did want to add just a couple of things. One thing that I think is very important in this proposal is that there is the program will be assessed by an independent evaluator, both at the midpoint of the program's life and in advance of the 10-year period, to be sure that we're achieving our goals of enhanced quality and access in this sector in Little Rock. And the cost of that evaluation, an independent evaluation, is built into the program. The second thing I would add is that to ensure wise decision making about this program on an ongoing basis, there is an advisory board of experts and deeply engaged Little Rock residents in the field of early childhood education to guide decision making on expenditures. That said, budgeting would be carried out as part of the annual budgeting process by the city board. And the committee would only be advisory. One final thing, you remember back in the very original plan, there was a college savings account or a 529 note program including. That has been removed here so that we can really focus on the core work related to early childhood education. And I agree with Director Computers. This is an amazing opportunity to do transformative work for infants, toddlers, and their families in this community. And so I'm glad to answer any other questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barr. Thank you so much, Director Wyrick, for that question to gain more information. Since I really do appreciate that. And Director Computers, thank you for your work with Dr. Barr to come up with this revised plan. It's appreciated. Now I do know our city attorney had a comment he wanted to make.
Oh, I just wanted to let the board know I made a big mistake. I somehow was thinking that the first vote was to approve the resolution as opposed to table the resolution. And that's what the comment about when you can make amendments was right. Director or Vice Mayor Hines was totally correct to offer an amendment when he did. And when I looked back at my notes, I gasped. So I apologize.
Thank you for that notation.
Point of order, Mayor. Mr. Parliamentarian.
Before I need to recognize your point of order.
Point of order.
Vice Mayor Hines. What is your point of order?
Mr. Parliamentarian, if your ruling was incorrect, then my amendment and second stand correct. We should move to discussion and a vote.
You already voted. I mean, the answer to your question.
We never voted on my amendment.
Yeah, we did. We had a 3-7 vote.
No, we did not. You pointed it out of order.
That was after the vote had occurred.
That was after the vote, and I went back with the vote, and then we counted the vote. That's on the tape. If we need a recess for you to see the tape, we can do that, but we've already moved forward. That being said,
I still have a comment on this resolution there.
Well,
my hand fell up.
Let me finish, because your hand was for your point of order.
No,
So you now got your hand again?
My hand's up again.
All right. Vice Mayor Hines.
Thank you. I still, to much chagrin, that I'm going to have to speak for the phone calls and the emails and the conversations I've had over the months of this, for the folks who are not aware that this hearing is going on or that couldn't make it at 4 o'clock. I think it's shameful that we're doing it this way. And, I realize that the mayor has his votes. Obviously, he would not have called a special called meeting. I just am very disappointed in a lot of my fellow board members. And I've expressed that to a couple of you, and you may disagree with me. But I'm not going to apologize for that. It's truthful and heartfelt. I really wish that we could have all found ways to work together like we did, even with the mayor's administration. But it's been obvious that there's been a divide and conquer mentality with the mayor's administration, that he's been able to peel off 1, 2, or 3 of us to get what he wants in critical situations by playing word politics or giving the parties what they want. And I understand that's politics, but I was elected not to do what's politically expedient on this board. I ran on the idea that I didn't, wasn't really seeking future political office, wanted to make sure that I want to do this, but I love this city. And I made a commitment to make decisions that were in the best interest of the city and her citizens and our employees. This resolution, the way we're spending this money, is not in the best interest of the city, our citizens, or its employees. I find it interesting that Bruce's own numbers, we collected 95% of the sales tax we thought we were due. But based on the information I was given yesterday, we've only met 65% of the fire department's needs. We failed to follow our apparatus equipment replacement over the last 10 years, and that's the fault of administration. That's the fault of Fleet, the fire department chief, and Bruce Moore and the mayor, previous and this one. You can say you weren't the mayor when we passed this, but we had a plan in place, and if you ignored it, that's to your own peril. Chief Hubbard, I'm telling you right now, your house is on fire. Your proverbial house is on fire. We're down 37 firefighters. And if what I heard was true, and I'll have a private conversation with you about it, the reason we're down that many firefighters is because we refuse to run classes. It's going to lead to the death of a citizen or a firefighter or someone else in this city. I will not be supporting this. And I like I say, I'm very disappointed in how this is all being done. Thank you.
Director Phillips.
Mayor, I would like to call the question.
Second. There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have
Roll
it.
call, Mayor.
On calling the question? All right. Roll call.
Director Richardson,
Yes.
Director Webb, Director Peck, Director Wright, Director Wyrick, Director Compuris, Director Phillips,
Yes.
Director Adcock. No. Director Hendricks,
No.
Vice Mayor Hines,
Nay.
6-4.
The question has been called. Director Hendricks, you're up.
No, that's.
Point of order, Mayor.
That's correct. Director Hendricks, there's been a point of order. I mean, there's been a call to question. Thank you so much, Mr. Attorney. The next step is just to take the vote. The resolution has been read. All those in favor of the resolution?
Right, do we have to have a motion in a second to approve the resolution?
No.
Yeah, because it's a new, basically.
Yes.
So did we not already? I thought we already read the resolution.
We did, but I didn't have a motion in a second to approve it because.
I thought we did.
It went straight to Vice Mayor Hines.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay. Roll
Ayes
call,
have it.
Mayor.
Ayes have it.
Roll call, Mayor.
Now, there's a roll call.
Director Richardson,
Yes.
Director Webb, Director Peck. Yes. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Director Wright. Director Wyrick. Director Compuris. Director Phillips.
Yes.
Director Adcock. No. Director Hendricks.
No.
Vice Mayor Hines.
No.
6-4.
Ayes have it.
Where do I turn my light on? I'm tired of sitting up here. I want to raise my hand. Yeah, I want to talk.
We got you, Director Hendricks. I know you want.
Um,
It's your turn then.
May I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me know if I'm out of order, but I want the public to know why I voted nay against this. We have a school district, and I'm not going to sit up here and agree and acquiesce to what these people are doing. Some of it is for their own good. We have a school district, and I knew nothing about this coming on the board. So I want the people that I represent that has said to me, why does the city board of directors establishing this position with the schools? I vehemently disagree, and I will be campaigning against it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Our special call meeting, there's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank
Did we vote on it?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Did a roll call.
okay.
Yeah.
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, meeting adjourned. We're now back into, now starting our agenda meeting. Board of Directors. We have a presentation from Active Transportation in Little Rock. Leslie Parker, Ms. Parker. Mr. Parker, I'm sorry, I apologize.
All right. My name is Leslie Parker. I'm a Clinton School of Public Service student, and I've been doing a capstone project over active transportation in the city of Little Rock. And I'm going to try to get to this presentation pretty quick to stay in my time frame. Ask you keep any comments and questions to the end, please. All right. And starting, I'm going to jump into the benefits.
Mr. Parker, if you could speak up louder.
Oh, sorry.
Bring the mic closer to you yourself.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that better, members of the board? It's better, Mr. Parker.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, active transportation in the city of Little Rock. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the benefits of active transportation, starting with the economic benefits. Sorry, let me just wave at you. Okay. First, the economic benefits include supporting retail and tourism and local businesses, the economic development and revitalization of neighborhoods, think East End, for example, and higher property values within the city of Little Rock. And then moving on to the attracting talent part of economic benefits, 2/3 of millennials choose to first choose where they live and then look for work. 3/4 are planning to live in an urban core. And again, nearly 2/3 are planning to live somewhere they don't need a car. And continuing with the health benefits of increased physical activity, improved safety, and addressing chronic diseases. And equity benefits of improved accessibility for non-drivers, lowering transportation costs, and low-income and minority residents are disproportionately killed in bicycle and pedestrian accidents. And the sustainability benefits of energy conservation and reducing pollution reduction and reducing traffic congestion, and also our vehicle miles traveled. For those who don't know, Little Rock has the highest vehicle miles traveled rate of 52 comparable cities throughout the country. And so I'm going to get into Little Rock versus peer cities, which I have identified Memphis, Fayetteville, and Austin as regional peer cities that the city of Little Rock has to compete with. Looking at this list, you can see that the city of Little Rock ranks very low compared to other regional cities when it comes to advancing active transportation and investing in bike infrastructure, for example, at 246th in the country, with Fayetteville, Memphis, and Austin all running up the top 7. And then also when it comes to what we invest in active transportation, the city of Little Rock ranks super low at 2% of our transportation budget on active transportation. We have one of the lowest riderships, and we are considered one of the most dangerous cities in the country when it comes to active transportation for walking and biking. And the city of Fayetteville has greatly increased their active transportation networks, with 83% of the population lives within a half-mile of a shared use paved trail. And that was 55% in 2015 and 97% by 2040. And then the city of Memphis has also in 2010 had less than 2 miles of bike lanes in 2010 and has expanded that to over 300 miles in 10 years. And in another 10 years expects to have over 500. And then the city of Austin has recently passed a couple of different tax initiatives to make their city more innovative, such as Proposition B, which invests hundreds of millions of dollars in active transportation and also safety initiatives. So the city of Little Rock has the city of Little Rock's priorities. You can see here Frank Mayor Scott's mobility agenda, which talks about advancing active transportation within the city of Little Rock. And if we move on to the City of Little Rock's mission statement, you can see that's dedicated to improving its residents' quality of life, providing exceptional service in an efficient and equitable manner. And the City of Little Rock has a vision to be a leading southern city that is vibrant, safe, and innovative, that provides an excellent, sustainable quality of life for its families, individuals, and businesses to thrive. So that brings me to my 4 recommendations to promote active transportation in the city of Little Rock. And the first one is to actually fund active transportation. Funding active transportation means we can have more facilities, more ridership, attracting more talent, tourism, et cetera. And as I said before, Little Rock underinvested in its active transportation networks compared to cities across our state and regionally the states around us. And I encourage the city to pass the Rebuild the Rock penny sales tax initiative, especially for its allocation of parks and recreation that include bike paths and trail connections, and increase that active transportation budget. And also obligate all scooter share revenue to active transportation improvements and create an active transportation grant match fund. The other cities I've listed have competed and received federal matching grants from different things to increase their active transportation in their respective cities, but the city of Little Rock has been unable to do so because there is no grant match fund pool available to it. And then next is promoting smart growth. As you can see in some of the pictures in the next few slides, you can see walkable compared to non-walkable communities. And the differences in communities that you make walkable and bikeable, you have thriving businesses, people want to live there, higher property values, and complete streets that support travel by car, bike, scooter, pedestrian, and transit. I encourage the city to encourage mixed-use development and promoting dense grid over cul-de-sac street layouts and abolishing parking minimums. And in the next slide, you can see an aerial view of downtown. If you look at this, you can see that downtown is nearly 3/4 nothing but parking lots. If we got rid of eliminating parking requirements, like I saw in Mayor Frank Scott Jr.'s mobility agenda, you can create more places for people to live and businesses to thrive. And whenever here is Broadway to Chester, 3rd to 7th, 3/4 of nothing but parking lots. If this walk isn't useful, safe, comfortable, and interesting, people won't do it. And then encouraging mixed-use development. When you have communities like this, like you see in Midtown, where people can live close to the grocery stores they need to live, the gyms, restaurants, people can live without having to have a car as a prosthetic to be able to live and get around the city of Little Rock. And then also promoting dense grade over cul-de-sac. As you can see here, whenever you have cul-de-sacs, it takes twice as long by car and distance to be able to get around. And the same as with biking, 3 times as long to be able to bike, 3 times as long to be able to walk. And also the cost in cul-de-sacs, for those who don't know, is exponential to cities, as it costs more for trash pickup, fire, police services, et cetera. And then also, so remove parking minimums, encourage mixed-use development, and incentivize dense grade developments, something that cities all over the country have started doing in recent years to be able to save on money for the cities as well. And then centering equity is my 3rd recommendation. High-income communities enjoy 90% of their streets having sidewalks compared to only 50% of low-income communities. And that has resulted in low-income communities being income residents being twice as likely to be killed while walking than high-income residents. And even by Metro Plan for the Central Arkansas area, these statistics reign true. And reasons for some of these higher crash rates among minorities may include higher resilience on walking and public transit, a lack of pedestrian and bike infrastructure, and lack of education. And here's a crash analysis by Metro Plan from 2015. If you look at this map, you can see that the majority of our most dangerous places in a city for pedestrians and bicyclists are our majority minority neighborhoods. And that's because there's been a historical not as much funding for bicycling pedestrian infrastructure in those areas. That has been starting to get addressed in recent years. And here's an example of 12th Street, where a complete streets, almost perfectly bike lanes, turning lanes, sidewalks, crosswalks, etc. So promote development, historical underserved communities, connect these communities to their schools, parks, public transportation, and increase investment in public transportation in those communities as well. And then my fourth and final recommendation is prioritizing safety. And Adopt an ACTA is my first one, as it prioritizes creating safe conditions for vulnerable road users. It's a design method, and it's been adopted by Austin and Memphis, and it got its used in Fayetteville. And Vision Zero, next one, is a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all. And the reason for the city of Little Rock to do this is to be able to increase safety, increase ridership, and lower those crash and fatality rates. And the reason to do this is to give the city a metric of safety over level of service, how quickly cars move through areas. Safety over speed. If we want to be the safe, innovative city that we claim to be or envision to be, we need to start prioritizing the safety of our residents over the speed of our residents. Being able to cross the street on Broadway should be more important than getting down Cantrell at 55 miles an hour. And then again, here's another list that shows the Little Rock area being one of the most dangerous areas in the country to walk. If the city of Little Rock wants to stop making these lists every single year, then it's going to have to start doing something to prioritize safety in our city. And again, traffic is too heavy, dangerous intersections, motorists don't exercise caution, a lack of bike facilities is the reason for this lack of safety. Investing in active transportation is key to increasing that safety. And cities such as Austin, Memphis, and Fayetteville have all lowered their default speed limits to 25 miles an hour. And as you can see on this next slide, city of Little Rock is pretty much all high stress streets. And if we would just lower it to 25 and enforce that, we could make the city of Little Rock a less stressful place to walk and bike for people. And so I encourage the city to lower the default speed limit to 25, like most other major cities and communities throughout the country have started doing, especially in school zones, downtown, business districts, designated bike routes, and residential neighborhoods, and include bike and pedestrian safety in all Little Rock schools. Thank you, and that's all I have. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Parker, thank you so much for spending time being not only a student, but a representative of the Clinton School of Public Service. This is truly beneficial to us as we digest and as we work together to focus on mobility and sustainability as it relates to public policy here in the city of Little Rock.
Okay,
Director Peck, Mayor, I'm sorry.
We'll start with Director Peck, then Director Richardson.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the presentation. As the board liaison to the Sustainability Commission, I really appreciate and resonate with a lot of this, and I hope we can embrace some of the things you've suggested. And thank you for bringing up the scooter revenue, and I'll just be a pain in the you-know-what. I've asked about the revenue a couple of times, the scooter revenue and where that might be going, and I hope that it can go into a pot that would address some of these things. And thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you.
Director Wyrick, then Director Phillips.
I don't really know how to ask this question, but I'll just jump in there. There was a slide that was passed over, and it was the one that talked about the number of pedestrians that were injured based on the speed. Can we see that again?
Yes, ma'am. As she's pulling that up, so whenever you're going 20 miles per hour, you have a 10% chance of, right there, of survival compared to the city of Little Rock's default, which is the state default, speed limit at 30 miles per hour, which is only a 50% survival rate. For the majority of downtown, for example, the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. And so probably one of the most busiest places for people to walk in the city of Little Rock for the most part. And if you get hit by a car because someone's not paying attention, texting and driving, et cetera, you really only have about a 50% chance of survival. I'm sorry for skipping over this slide. I was trying to fit a 15 to 20 minute presentation in 10 minutes, but I thank you for your question.
Well, you made a point about lowering the speed limit, and then that, it was after the slide and I thought, I need to go back and see what that slide says. But it really is saying that if you lower the speed limit, then your chances of survival and injury are a lot less. So that's what I wanted to try to put the two together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Parker. What caught my attention was the parking, surface parking throughout downtown. As someone who works downtown in the Bank of America building, I get to look out my window and get that same view that you showed us today. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I guess I'll be a, you know what, like Director Peck said to our city manager, at some point, city manager, I would like to have a discussion about the parking requirements at a future agenda meeting, because I agree with Mr. Parker that we need to figure out how to, we need to do something different downtown with all the parking lots. So we can have someone do a presentation at some point about where we are and how we got there. I think a lot of our citizens would like to know that. And also, Mr. Parker, you may not know this, but as part of our group, Think Big Little Rock, we noticed the same thing with all the surface parking. So that's something that has been near and dear to my heart for a while. And thank you for bringing it back to our attention.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore, we share what's up on the policy agenda item. I know Director Phillips said he didn't want to be a pain, but we wanted to make sure we're being responsive to his other items.
I actually told him this afternoon, but for the entire board on July 13th, we'll have a discussion on targeted neighborhood. And there's a lot of discussion. Director Wright started it about multifamily in the city. And Jamie, Director Collins, has been working on a sort of overall plan. So we'll have that discussion on the 13th, along with targeted community development.
Thank you for that, Mr. Moore.
Thank you so again. Thank you so much, Mr. Parker. We do appreciate you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Board members will now go through the July 6th agenda. Are there any I know we're going to talk briefly, separate. I know Director Adcock wants to visit about item number 3 and hold separate. So we'll come to that shortly, but are there any questions from items 1 through 17?
Yes.
See Director Wright's hand and then Director Hendrick's hand.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Moore, I see that resolution number 6 is to authorize you for an amount not to exceed $281,000 for construction of services for grounds and animal facility improvements. But it has it listed in Ward 6.
Yeah, that's incorrect. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that made me think that to ask this question. This is money is coming from the 3/8 cent capital improvement. And as you know, I've been trying to get the ball fields upgraded at West Central for a number of years, ever since we acquired the property back in 2003. So is there any money from this 3/8 that could be used to upgrade those fields and the dugouts and the fencing?
As I mentioned, the projections, and it's a projection because we're not done with this year, but we still feel that we're going to be at about 95% of the 100% funding. So, so there's no additional money. We're just trying to make sure we have enough money to complete the projects that we committed to.
And so this project was committed to?
Correct.
Mayor Scott, are we planning to have a discussion regarding the rescue funds?
Yes,
Because I
ma'am.
believe I saw in the guidance that there was an avenue for facilities and so forth. And I do have some negative impact from COVID with regards to our programs at West Central. So I'm trying to see where we are as far as what we can get done with existing funding that we know that we have. So that just prompted my question when I saw that listed as Ward 6. I didn't know I had the zoo. And then on number 7, my question is this trail being constructed with grant funds, or where are these funds coming from, Mayor? I mean, Mr. Moore? I don't see anything in there to indicate where the funds are coming from. Because again, I have ball fields that we've never upgraded at all since 2003 when we acquired the property.
Yeah, I thought, this is from the Arkansas Department of Transportation Rails, Recreation Trails Program. So this type of funding can be used for ballpark.
Could not.
Correct.
Will you please work on with your staff to identify what grants or funds can be used to upgrade those ball fields?
We will.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Director Wright and Director Wright. Thank you for submitting your recommendations for the American Rescue Plan. The team is reviewing all the proposals from the board members that have sent in proposals, along with city staff, as we also work through the compliance of the American Rescue Plan. And we're working to come to an agenda meeting in July with a working format before we put anything into a resolution form to have a discussion from that standpoint. I don't know if we don't, unless there's Director Cox here, I don't see her. Is there any update you want to brief? I know you've been having you had a meeting this afternoon. Just take this opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, no, I do not have any further updates beyond what you had stated, but I am present.
Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, Director Wyrick, is your name?
Yeah,
Hand up.
raise my hand. Bruce has said a couple of times tonight that we met about 95% of our money coming in from the 2011 sales tax, and that there's going to be some projects that are not going to be funded.
No, I didn't say that.
That's what I heard. So
I'm
let me
sorry.
finish my question.
No.
What I would, well, I mean, we're talking about some different things already. So what I'd like to know is what will not be funded out of that sales tax package? One of the things that I'm interested in is there's supposed to be $400,000 into Yorkwood to try to make improvements on the drainage issues that they have continually in that neighborhood. And I've not seen anything on that. So that's on my radar. And I have to go back and look and see what else might be there. But if we've got things that we're not going to fund, then I'd like to know what they are. And I'm sure others here would also like to know. I put a lot of time into coming up with what I wanted to address on that sales tax package. So that's why I'm interested.
Sure. And I know our volume might not be great in here, but let me assure you, there's not one project on the 3/8 list that we will not complete. Most of them will be done by the end of the year. Probably the only one that won't be is Canis. But there's not, and if I said that, that was definitely not my intention. There's not a project on the 3/8 list that we will not complete.
You said the 2 fire trucks at Station 24, that there wasn't enough money to come in to fund those.
There was not enough money to fund the additional, which is on the operating side, the 6 additional firefighters. And again, remember, and these were 2 separate issues. We had the 5/8 cent, which is operating, which that's where we really suffered a lot as far as the operating side. But on the capital side, I think our staff did and I learned from both you and Director Adcock from the 94 bond issue, which I didn't have anything to do with.
Right?
I didn't have anything to do with it, but we learned. And so I think John Honeywell and his staff has done an excellent job. And even on this agenda, you see multiple public works. And these were in 3 phases. So all of the I want to be very clear, all of the capital projects. Now, again, when you only have 95%, the fire station is built to capacity. It
Right.
can take another 6 additional. We just don't have the operational dollars to add 6 right now. And I think there's an update even. I think there's an academy that graduates on July 9th. And I believe once they graduate, we'll only be down 6 firefighters is the information that I have. But so Yorkwood, everything, again, we had to do it in 3 different phases, but everything is on target.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that.
I assure you, I learned a lot from you all.
Okay, thank you.
Director Wright.
Mr. Moore, I want to piggyback on what you were just discussing with Director Wyrick, that all the projects were done. West Central, we got our building, but we didn't get our pool. And I understand the ramifications of cost overruns, which I feel could have been avoided, but that's all water under the bridge now. But that was a part that wasn't delivered. And there's been no attempt to address that over the years. So, in actual fact, we have not delivered on what we actually said. Thank you.
Mr. Moore, would you?
If I remember correctly, the allocation for West Central was $6 million. And I'm confident that we spent over $6 million for that project. So the allocation was $6 million, and we spent over $6 million. Now, a lot of things happened so I don't want it to be thought that we didn't spend the money that we allocated, because we did, and we spent more. And we talked over the years a lot about why we weren't able to do the pool. We had a reputable contractor, construction manager, that handled the project, and I know there's some disagreements with that. But I want to be clear, in that allocation on the 3/8 cent, it's at $6 million for West Central Complex, and we spent more than $6 million.
And I agree that we did, but we spent more and got less. So that is a sticking point with me. And I have every piece of documentation on everything that happened and occurred, along with all the pricing lists and everything. So I have not decided yet how I'm going to proceed to get that addressed, but just know that I have every intention of getting that addressed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Director Adcock.
I'm sure that Mableville Cutoff and Scott Hamilton taught you many lessons, but they also taught BJ and I many lessons to follow up and to keep asking and asking. So my next question, you can answer it probably without me asking the question. Animal Village. We still have not done the addition to the Animal Village.
And Director Adcock, I can show you tomorrow that the money is sitting in the account. It's in a special project account, and it's there. I mean, I'm not sure, they're down a lot of staff, I know. I mean, that's, tough way, but the money is there. The last time you brought it up, I checked, the money's there. So whenever that project is ready to move forward, the money is there.
Good. I just want to keep reminding everyone that we do have the money for the addition to the village. Thank
Right.
you.
Director Hendricks, is your name? Is your hand up?
I'm just being good today.
Yes, ma'am. We're grateful for you. All right. See, believe Director Adcock wanted to visit about item number 3. Is there some questions you have for item number 3, Director Adcock?
Yes, I would like to have an update on that. I understand that there was a meeting concerning that. We had lots of people come before us and talk about that. And I would like to have an update next week when we get ready to vote on this, and I would like to have it held separate. In
Sure.
case we have any citizens who want to come back and talk to us about it.
We'll definitely hold it separate, but with it being the agenda meeting, do you have any questions during the agenda meeting?
I would like an update on the meeting, who was there and what was decided.
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
that there was a lots of citizens that was concerned about having that right there in their neighborhood, and I want to make sure that everyone now understands what it is.
Mr. Moore, you want to give an update? And then we'll come to Director Computers, he has his hand up. I know Mr. Moore had an update.
There have been a lot of meetings. There's been some adjustments regarding traffic flow. And I understand there's the support. There is some support now to move forward, but I do think there's still some individuals who are unsure what an entertainment district really does. So I think we'll hear from that next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Director Computers?
Number 3.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I'm going to be hiking next week, but let me tell you what has transpired since our last meeting. There is a wonderful young man named Cody Miller, Lieutenant. Is that right, Bruce? And he has been attending the Thursday conference for a long time that we have downtown. We've just started back, and we started addressing the problems, and there are 2 different situations that have commingled themselves, and one is the caravanning and traffic and loud noise, and the other is the entertainment district. And so there was one of the residents downtown who became very concerned about this, and I met with Cody after the meeting, and we started talking about it, and he brought up some things that I did not know. And that is that when you put barricades up, in order to put barricades up, you have to leave 2 policemen in front of a portable barricade in order to man the barricade, one to move it and to prevent things from happening because they're portable and they're flimsy. And what he also told me is that it puts his officers at extreme risk, because if a car comes through that barricade, the first person they're going to hit are the 2 policemen. And so we talked about it, and then, as I said, one of the citizens came to me and said, "What can we do about this?" And I talked to Cody about it, and he came up with an ingenious plan to simultaneously take care of the traffic problem and making the entertainment district where it works, because if you put people on the street, it helps protect. And what Cody came up with is taking bollards that you can just screw into street level areas, and they can close off 3rd Street and River Market, and he's going to look at both of them simultaneously. And they can take the bollards and screw them in, and it does 2 things. One, it makes it a more secure barrier. Secondly, 2 policemen don't have to stand in front of the bollards the whole time, so they can walk the district and see what's happening. It makes it where it takes that traffic through there and gets rid of it. It also makes it where the residents of those 2 towers that live there can get to their buildings easily. Emergency vehicle can get there. And the second thing that happened is that individual has now volunteered to pay for ambassadors, at least through the summer. So there's 2 ambassadors downtown, Friday night and Saturday night, to patrol the areas. And then on Sunday evening, when there's a problem, so that hopefully, and if I've talked to the residents the last 2 weekends since it's been going on, there's less noise, there's less congestion, there's less problems. And if you then start having the district where it works, then that puts more people on the street and it actually slows any traffic that's going through there much more. So it may well end up a win-win. I think it is important that it stays on as a separate item as Joan wants, but I just wanted to tell you that one of our officers started thinking outside the box and came up with a really great solution on how to take care of it. So I just wanted to tell you all that.
Director Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to item number 3, am I loud enough? I never say that before. But like Director Capers, this issue's been close to my mind as well. So I've met with some of the business owners over the past couple of weeks. And they have informed me that both, and this is for the sake of the board, that both POAs for 303rd and River Market Tower have approved and given their consent to the entertainment district. So not only are there businesses that are ground level been supportive, it's my understanding that the residents in the condos are now supportive as well after multiple conversations, and I'm sure some of the conversation that Director Capers had, he heard that as well. So to put that out in front of the board, that if there was any concern about whether the residents as a whole are supportive of this entertainment district, I've been informed that they are. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Phillips. Director Adcock. Director Adcock.
Yes, I have another item that's not on the agenda.
That's not on the agenda. That's not on the agenda at all. If we could, we'll move forward with the remainder of the agenda and we'll come back to you, Smith. Are there any questions from items 18 through 20? All right. We got Director Wright, Director Richardson, and Director Warwick.
Director Hind.
And Director.
This is a question for the city manager, perhaps, Mr. Moore, is it possible, or would it be possible to add to the short-term financing note some dollars to renovate the ball fields at West Central? Or are we at our limit?
Dr. Wright, this note anticipates borrowing almost $6 million. So I would say that's probably the max that I would recommend. But I would also say that it does include purchasing the additional property that you've been very interested in.
I understand that. That was not my question. I'm trying to get the ball fields.
I believe we're at our max right now.
So that is your max. Okay.
Right.
Will you be coming up with a plan to submit to me regarding the fields, ball fields?
You did ask me that earlier, and you asked us to look at grant funds and
Any other funds?
correct. Okay.
Thank you.
And
Yes, sir.
Mayor, let me mention on item 19, and this is starting to become a trend, but about 4:30, my office was notified that the applicant wishes to withdraw item 19.
19.
Director Richardson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moore, because 19, Mayor, was one of the ones I was going to ask for a presentation on. I've been getting a lot of phone calls and emails and text messages about that, so thank you for the update on 19. I'd like to have a presentation on number 20 as well. Thank you, Bruce, for letting us know about 19, because it's been a real cause of concern for a lot of my constituents out in Ward 2. So we're gonna have a presentation, an update on number 20 and what
Yes.
proposed development that they're planning there.
Director Collins.
Mayor, members of the board. As this was presented previously, I believe this was deferred from the June 15th meeting. What they're looking to do is they're just looking to rezone the property from R2 single family to C3 general commercial. Currently, the property did contain two commercial buildings that was on the south 1/3 of the site. There is a portion that had existing parking, paved parking on the south side. The remainder of that site currently is undeveloped. The future land use plan designates this property as going C for commercial. That's what we was planning on for it to be. And so this C3 zoning would not require an amendment to the land use plan. At the presentation of the Planning Commission, there were no persons present registered in support or opposition. There was a vote of 11-4. It was on consent agenda.
So the proposed development there that's already zoned commercial, have there been any particular plans presented to us for potential businesses or in addition to additional uses for the undeveloped land for any future development? Do we have any idea whatsoever what they're planning on doing in that area should this get approved?
Well, if this gets approved by the board underneath C3 zoning, they're allowed to do any use that is permitted by right within C3. The layout at that time is done at staff level, reviewed per the adopted ordinances and codes for setbacks, landscaping. Parking is dependent upon the use. Depends on whether it's retail facility in the commercial, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's those types, can vary what the parking requirements are, and also what the layout could be.
Well, I'm kind of uncomfortable with this because we don't have enough specificity, because if I hear you correctly, they can put a convenience store right next door to a liquor store, a convenience store that could sell beer and wine. And subsequently they could build a whole nother apartment complex right across the street from a set of apartment complex. So I don't know why we don't have any specificity, or if Mr. Attorney, if that's even required or necessary for us to take any further steps. But I'm really, really uncomfortable with us not having any idea other than us just changing the zoning and us not even talking about any particular specific uses. The lack of specificity here is kind of problematic for me.
Thank you so much, Director Richardson.
So I guess we don't have any other.
Oh, Director Collins, did you have any comments back to?
No, I just wanted to also bring to the board's attention, if we could bring up the zoning plan, that area has been going commercial and is planned to be commercial. A C3 zoning is a standard zoning adopted by the board. We have straight zoning, which we consider C1, C2, C3, O1, O2, O3 for office and residential across this city. So even though at this time, there has not been a plan submitted to planning and development for review for what use is proposed on that, it is not uncommon in straight zoning for that to happen. And we also, from time to time, I believe there was a conceptual plan development that was presented to the board here recently, that even on a plan development does not necessarily mean that a specific use or a specific site plan is presented on a plan development. It can be general in nature to be determined at the time that the development comes in.
So thank you. And if I heard you correctly, then we have no idea any proposed businesses that's been designed for that area. We just noted that we have no conceptual framework, nothing in specifics that tells us what it is that they're proposing to put over in that area, because that's a pretty large area and you can do a lot over there. And there's been, the rumor mill certainly has been floating around with respect to a convenience store right next door to a liquor store, possible laundromat possible new apartment complex. So there's a host of items that are floating around in the community that makes it uncomfortable for me to move forward without us having any other knowledge and them not presenting you anything else other than that. So if I heard you correctly, we don't have any conceptual framework with any level of specificity to get us any idea what the proposed businesses they're trying to put in that area. If I heard you correctly.
That is correct, Richardson. There has nothing been submitted to this office for any type of specific use underneath a general C3 zone.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Except they have to comply with the definition of uses that are by right in C3.
That is correct.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much. Director Wyrick?
My questions were on 19 and 20. 19 was withdrawn without prejudice, so it will not come up in this form to us again.
Right.
Okay, and then 20, Director Richardson went over the concerns for the neighborhood. If you remember, we asked for this to be deferred so they could get together and try to figure out what the applicant was wanting to do there. They have concerns about C3 and really not knowing what development's going in. And we're just like Hillcrest Heights, anywhere else. We want to have quality development that looks good and is something that the neighborhood can use. And so that's the concern with just the straight C3 zoning.
Thank you, Director Wyrick. You're absolutely right.
Director Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor. My comment is probably directed to the city manager for number 18. I read the board communication, so I understand that part of the short-term finance is going to address something that been near and dear to me and people who also love basketball. So if you can just kind of give us a little bit of a presentation about what all is going to be used or what all we're going to do with the short-term financing.
Sure. Again, as I mentioned, it's about almost $6 million. It includes improvements at MacArthur Park that are in line with improvements going on at the Museum of Fine Arts. So that will make sure both projects look consistent and ready to open up next year. It includes $1.6 million for police and fire mobile radios. We're also going to do a new playground at MacArthur Park. Director Peck mentioned that the Mac Park group had raised significant money to build this playground, and so this will help complete that project. $750,000 toward a new fire truck. I think the project that Director Phillips is referring to is the Canis Park improvements. As you know, that basketball court was removed with the expansion of 630. We had a commitment from RDOT to redo that. That sort of fell away. In that RDOT, it was the company that, I can't remember their name now, that did it, did the project. And then we have a lot of people that are very interested in playing out at Interstate Park. If you've been out there in a while, the road is terrible. So this also will include dollars to improve the access in Interstate Park. And as I mentioned earlier, the buying some additional property near West Central.
Thank you, City Manager. That's all I have, Mayor.
And Director Phillips, I thought you would have mentioned this. I know to a lot of folks, since the 630 construction have been wanting to see some more development with the Canis Park and basketball courts. And I think this is going to be very pleasing to that community and those sports users at one of the more historic areas of the city as it relates to basketball. Director Wright, was your hand still up?
Not for this, Mayor. I have a question that I need to pose to the city manager and the city attorney after the agenda.
Yes, ma'am. Director Wyrick, your answer, has your answer been, your hand is still up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You'll take
I'll
it.
take it down. Sorry.
Just making sure, Director Hendricks, that your hands,
May I make a comment on whatever?
yes, ma'am.
I really wanted to share with the board and my constituents. I'm concerned about the two parking decks being built downtown. I think quite often of the time when the judge was here, who is deceased, the U.S. Supreme Judge, we parked at Clinton Library, and then we were carried to the downtown area. And I'm really suggesting this because I detest tax money being spent for two parking decks downtown. And I will be preaching that until September the 14th.
Yes, ma'am.
I meant that.
I believe, Director Peck.
After the agenda item.
Right, and we're still gonna, yeah, I have you on the
Yeah,
list.
I've got a couple of things.
Yes, ma'am. You're gonna, you want to
After,
read now, or you want?
no, I
Okay.
can wait.
All right, I think we've gone through all of the items from 17, 18 to 20. Any questions on 21? Director Pierce? All right. No questions on 21. Any questions on 22? Questions on 22? 23, we'll have an executive session. Just want to remind everyone that we will continue to have meetings here for the month of July. Mr. Moore, before I go to the board members, did you have?
I do. I misspoke on the issue of the 3/8 cent. There was a project, there was supposed to be a joint police headquarters and courts building that was on the 3/8 cent list. And because of cost, we decided to move forward with the police headquarters, which is right across the street, but the courts building was not included. So I wanted to, since I said everything was going to be done, the courts building is the one project that is not being done.
And that was done as a result of cost, Mr. Moore?
Correct.
All right. I believe we have all of those. Director Peck, and
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to briefly read a letter, very short letter. Eugene Matthews is the president of the Breckenridge Neighborhood Association in Ward 4, and this is from his daughter. It's a feel-good thing from Jennifer Matthews. I want to thank the First Tee of Central Arkansas for all the great opportunities and experiences that they have provided me. The First Tee has great coaches that teach every student not only great golf skills, but also core values that they can use in their everyday life. I'm so appreciative of the First Tee for being awarded the Arnold Palmer Scholarship, which will be beneficial in helping me obtain my degree in biology at Harding University. Thank you again, Jennifer Matthews. So, good news. May I continue?
yes, ma'am.
So Director Wyrick referred to the email that we all received from the IAFF Local 34. I met with them yesterday. I know that Vice Mayor Hines did, and that others of us are being asked to talk to them about some of their concerns. And I know, Bruce, you addressed the rookie class and filling some of the vacancies. There's a lot of other things going on. This is probably not the appropriate venue to discuss it in, but I would like to know what's the appropriate person I can talk to about some of their concerns to help them get some answers.
And what are their questions?
Primarily, the applicants, the 174 approved by the civil service test to hire. They certified 50, 33 were hired. They feel like people are leaving, even with the rookie class that I think graduates in August. They're still not going to have enough. They're very concerned that the overtime budget was pretty much used up in May and.
And Director
brought-
Baker, I apologize, I just want to make sure, you're talking about the police department or fire
No,
department?
no, Local 34.
Okay, I just want to make, I did.
Yeah, yeah. And so overtime budget, they said they paid $10,000 in overtime almost daily, just past Wednesday, 25 shifts just this past Saturday alone. We almost had a brownout at Canis, Station 20, because of staffing issues, but fortunately, staff agreed to work more overtime, but they're working 3 to 4 times a month overtime. Apparatus problems that we've all heard about. One area, I think this is you, Doris, on Shackelford Station 9, they don't even have a ladder truck. So if something happens, that's a serious problem. Station 2, where a friend of mine is, that apparatus is 23 years old. The captain asked how much water they had when they were on a call recently, and the water gauge is broken. He couldn't even answer the question. So it's a public safety matter. I was frankly, I think Director Hines used the word to me, shocked at hearing some of this information. I know all that overtime causes mental and physical fatigue. Some firefighters are leaving, some that have 18 years of service, and I'm just super concerned about it and would like for us to address some of those things.
And that's the reason why we have our department directors. If Chief Hubbard would come down, if he's still here, I think he can ask that directly. And again, board members, I know at times members of Local 34 or the Fraternal Order of Police, they will reach out to you directly and share their perspective. But I did want to make sure everyone, when there are questions, we always want to get that from fire administration or police administration. It's always a difference between the management and sometimes, not always a difference, but there can be a difference sometimes between budgeting decisions and perspective from management and personnel. So because public safety is a top priority, we have Chief Hubbard here. Want you to address that, but also just for the members of the board, one of the items today, I know a part of the process that Mr. Moore and I have been visiting with, we already have a part of the short-term note. Is that correct, Mr. Moore? How about you explain that in short term? I know we talked about the Canis ball fields, but this board just, as we've been a part of this agenda, maybe outline all the things as much as you can, but particularly about fire.
Sure. Back up. In this note, we've set aside $750,000 for a fire truck, in addition to the 3/8 cent allocations, because as you know.
You got to speak into the mic, Mr. Moore.
So, and in the short-term note that the board hopefully will approve next Tuesday, there's $750,000 in addition to a 3/8 cent allocation that's already in the budget to purchase an additional fire truck. The mayor and I and staff have been looking and obviously at the recovery funds and what potential is there from an apparatus standpoint. So, and and I can't remember the exact number, but I believe out of the 3/8 cent, if the board remember, we bought in one time almost 7 fire trucks that all got delivered at the same time and over probably about 2005, 2006. So I do believe Mr. Hinton and Chief Hubbard have a concrete plan on adding to the fleet. But let me also say, when 2 of your trucks, run into each other, now they're out of service. We don't count on that, but that happened and that's life. But that's something else that contributes to where we are.
Thank you so much. So board members, again, if you choose to vote yes in the short-term note, we'll take care of one apparatus there. Mr. Moore shared. There's another apparatus, part of the 3/8 cent sales tax allocation. That's a part of it. Chief Hubbard's already shared the additional close to 80 million that's going towards public safety will be help tremendous with the replacement plan with Willie Hinton. So we are doing very well as it relates to the replacement and keeping up. Clearly, as Mr. Moore shared, when you lose 2 apparatus in a wreck, that doesn't help. But we are continuing to stay on top of that from the 3/8 cents, the short-term note, and hopefully through the sales tax initiative. Chief Hubbard, if you'll address the other concerns from that Director Peck has shared.
Director Peck.
I can hear you. I can't see you, but I see the top of your head.
To your questions and concerns and to the rest of the board members, apparatus, let's start with apparatus. Always been a concern.
Are you speaking to the mic, Chief Hubbard?
Apparatus, you spoke to the nature of apparatus and the concerns from the members local. And as I've shared with them, that concern is greater for me than it is for them. I think I've expressed that to each of you individually, the need for the replacement plan that myself and the Director of Fleet, Willie Hinton, have presented to the city administration, in which I'm hopeful and excited about the idea of the incentive, the 1 cent incentive, to be able to address that concern. As far as staffing, I think Director Hines mentioned earlier, it was notated that we're down 37 firefighters. Director Hines, I think they may have given you some incorrect information. We have 29 members in the academy as it stands. Those individuals are accounted for in our total complement of 433 employees. So with that, they are not counted as far as into operations yet because they're still going through training, which they will complete come July the 9th, 2 Fridays from now. At that time, we will be down only 6 firefighters. However, that number could change. Injuries, unannounced resignations, those things impact that number. So in public safety, you're never going to be at 100% as it relates to operations. The overtime, Director Peck, you mentioned, yes, we are running that number with 29 people in the academy. That is impacting that. But at the same time, all of the overtime is voluntary. There's only been, I think, on 2 or 3 occasions where an individual was mandated to stay over for overtime.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. Chief Hubbard, again, members of the board, just we know many times information is brought to you. We just want to, I think this is a great forum that it can be asked and the accurate information can be shared from that standpoint.
And I have a roster here if any of the directors want to see all of our current members to reflect the number of employees we have.
If you'll just share that with Madam Clerk and pass that out, please.
Well, they're always.
I have a question for the chief.
Every time.
3.
And Mr. Hubbard, if you don't mind later on this evening, if you'll send me an email, just kind of what you just shared, I want to make sure members of the board have that information just so they can have it as reference.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Was that it, Director Peck? I thought you had a third something. All right.
Do you want me to read the letter again so we can feel good?
Maybe we'll wait for
Okay.
the end of the meeting.
Right.
We may need it again.
Okay.
Director Adcock.
Yes, I have just passed out an ordinance that we passed in 2014. It pertains to mobile food trucks. Mayor, when we had the pandemic, a lot of the restaurants could not have people inside their buildings, and the food trucks kind of took up the slack that we needed. But now, since the restaurants have opened, I'm hearing from them, they have a real problem with all the food trucks. On some of our corners in Southwest Little Rock, there's a food truck on every corner. And I asked Mr. Carpenter to pull for me the ordinance, and I've just handed one out to each of you. Item number 4, 10, 12, 15, and 17 at this time are not being enforced on. I've called Jamie's department and informed them I've driven around these mobile home trucks. They're not complying with this ordinance. And I cannot understand why we have an ordinance that has so many people not following it. We have people out there with no city permits, no health department, You can see item 4, item 10, item 12, item 15, item 17. These are not being followed. When we passed this in 2014, it says in here that a food truck cannot stay overnight on location. It has to leave at dark and it can be brought back in the morning, but it cannot be taken to a residence, but it cannot be set on location. And we have these 24/7. And so I'm asking you, Mayor and Mr. Moore, to please ask the police and the planning department to enforce this ordinance, because at this time it's not being followed. The people who have restaurants have a right to have their customers come in. They follow all the rules with health department and with permits and all the taxes, and they're just asking us to enforce what we passed in 2014. And that's what I would like to ask, is that we enforce what we have passed on this ordinance. The pandemic is, we hope, over with, although I don't think that we would all agree that it is. But we do need to understand that our restaurants, our cafes have a right to have their business back in their store, in their restaurants. So please, if we would please enforce what our resolution, what our ordinance was passed in 2014.
Thank you so much, Director Adcock. Director Collins, any comments?
Mayor, Director Adcock, you are correct. During the pandemic, because everything that the restaurants and other facilities was seeing in the downturn, due to that, it was also, if you remember, the mayor's office and city administration, the city really enacted the dine out, where we started letting restaurants use outdoor space, not only downtown, you've seen that, but some other spaces. And the reason that we were looking at the food trucks is because also some other restaurants, in doing of their, when they had a reduced capacity, started utilizing some of their canteen units for food trucks to do the sales. So that we believe was a initiative and something that was needed to help keep some of the economy and also some of the sales, not only just the restaurant sales outside and dining, but also some that were using the canteen units, to still be viable. I do believe at this time we are still seeing some of the effects of the pandemic. So, getting with the city administration to see what we can do in some of those areas. I do believe that a couple of the canteen units that you had turned into our office that we are currently enforcing on the location out there in Geyer Springs. So, I know that there's a couple that we're looking at right now. I do not know the list or the location of the ones that you have submitted in its entirety. But I would be glad to look at those and sit down with the mayor's office and go over that.
Some of these, Mr. Collins, one of them has hooked up to the inside of the restaurant. But we would just like for you to start enforcing where they are removed at night and all the other items on this ordinance, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Collins. Director Wyrick?
Thank you, Mayor. My comments are along the peddlers and mobile canteen units. I went to a neighborhood meeting last night. It probably had 7 neighborhood presidents there, and this was on their agenda. They're concerned about the number of units. They're also concerned that they're hooking up to electricity and water. Some of the businesses are subletting property to these units. They're setting up tables, which this ordinance strictly says you can't do that. So they're concerned about where we are right now with the canteen units and would like to follow the ordinance as Director Adcock has talked about.
Yes, ma'am. Director Wright?
Mayor, I need to weigh in on that just briefly, but that was not what I wanted to talk about.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
we actually have one, I actually have one that either they purchased a lot or somebody purchased a lot and they had it paved graded and paved with asphalt, and they're set there permanently. It does not leave. And that's on Colonel Glenn. So this is an issue that I would like to see us address as well. But what I wanted to bring out or ask the city attorney to address is my constituents that are at Capitol Lake Estates and about the donutting in front of their gate and all of the loud music. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm being inundated with emails from this neighborhood. And they are showing video, they have pictures, they have license plate numbers, and nothing has been done. And I continue to forward it to the police. I continue to forward it to the city manager. And I think, Mayor, I copied you on the last ones.
Yes, ma'am.
I want Mr. Carpenter to address why, if we know the license plate number of the car, if we know the make, model number of the car, if we know that, or we got images or we got pictures or video of the donutting because of their security cameras at their gate, and we know where this car resides at, which is at the apartment complex down the street, why can we not arrest these people?
Director Wright, I know of no reason you can do that. I think I mentioned earlier that the offenses in terms of the donutting and the damage to property and such and the noise do not go with the car. They actually go with an individual. So there may be some cases where even with the license plate, we can't actually determine who was driving at the moment, but that has nothing to do with approaching and trying to find that out, getting that information.
So that is Chief Humphrey here, Mr. Mayor?
No, ma'am. Chief Finks and Chief Haskins. Chief Haskins, I know you're over patrol. If you wouldn't mind coming.
And the only reason that those residents are not here is because this is an agenda meeting. They can't speak, but they are intending to be at the next meeting. And I'm frustrated. They're frustrated. And we just need answers as to why this cannot be addressed.
Chief Haskins.
Good evening, Board and Director Wright. We've received several Board of Director complaints on this particular area. We've done a lot of traffic enforcement.
Chief Haskins, if you would mind bringing closer up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Director Wright and to all of the other board members, we've done a couple of Board of Director complaints and we've gotten that information back to you all. One of our recent recommendations is for a roundabout, and that is from feedback that we've gotten back from the neighbors there. It is an open space in that area, which makes it a little more inviting for this type of activity. I think that a roundabout may mitigate some of that. And so Chief Humphreys said that he was going to reach out to Director Collins to broach that idea to him. I haven't had a chance or opportunity to follow back up on that, but that's the direction that we're trying to move in.
But if you know the make and model number of the car, where the car resides at, cannot the owner of that car be approached and asked or told that they are disturbing the peace? Have we not tried that?
Without getting into a lot of the specifics, because we are talking about ACIC information, we have followed up on some of those complaints. Some of those LPN license plate numbers that we receive were inaccurate, and that often happens. We ask citizens to do their best to try to get that information to us. We did locate an individual that actually lived in the complex. We shared that information with the complex management. And I think that they took some action. So we're following up as much as we possibly can. As far as issuing a citation for that activity, if it didn't occur in the officer's presence, then they wouldn't be able to pursue that. So that's another one of our issues. We are supportive of the street caravanning, street racing ordinance that the city attorney's office presented. I'm not for sure where it is in the vote process, but we would like for that to be brought back up for a final vote. We think that that will help us with additional measures of enforcement.
Chief Haskins, I saw I think I saw it on social media where an arrest had been made of a young lady that posted video of herself doing donuts in Boyle Park on the basketball courts. These residents are telling me that they have video of this car. So if we can arrest this young lady, why can't this driver be
So
arrested?
I wasn't a part of that investigation, but I think a number of things probably more than likely happened. She posted it to her social media account, and we were able to verify that information, that it was actually her in the vehicle at the time that the violation occurred. And so all of those things have to go into our factors as far as presenting information to the prosecutor's office and them actually approving those affidavits for a subsequent warrant.
So if I provide you with video of a car
And
you
so
make,
again, we have to see the driver in there if we're going to go after someone. It's not just the vehicle. We have to be able to identify who the driver is.
Mr. Carpenter, will you address that, please? Because I need these I know they're listening and they're watching, and I want them to hear that I'm asking these questions because these are the questions they're asking of me. So I hear what she's saying. I need to know from a legal standpoint, what do we need to do?
Director Wright, first off, I'm not looking at you because I can see you straight on
I
in
understand.
the thing, so I apologize.
You don't have to look at it.
But the chief is right. It's the thing I pointed out. The offenses that we've got are not offenses based upon the automobile, like a parking ticket. They are offenses based upon the intentions of an individual, which is what makes it necessary to know who was driving and do we know who was driving. Once that's done, the other point that the chief pointed to is that misdemeanor charges cannot be filed unless they occurred in the presence of an officer. The only exception to that is shoplifting, and that's if there has been a detective or somebody within the store who has detained the person, then we can arrest the person for shoplifting, and that's by statute. So what would happen is, in terms of investigation, I've got to defer to the chief, but if the investigation shows that the car license to John Doe was driven by John Doe at the time the illegal activity occurred, then for a traffic offense, we can prepare an affidavit with the appropriate people, and then a warrant can be issued and served, and the person can go into municipal court. I think, does that answer what you were asking?
Not really. It just seems like it doesn't matter if you got video of the car doing it.
No, it does matter. I mean, if you've got video of a car and it's not heavily tinted windows and it's got somebody in there that is readily identified, yes, you can use that. And you can also use that to approach the person saying, "It's that you driving there?" And the moment they say yes, that's an admission. And then
That's what I would have thought. So why are we not doing that?
I don't know, but I thought that Chief Haskins just said that we are doing some of that. But
And so we are, and we're encouraging all of the neighbors to continue to do what they're doing, and that's communicating back with us and calling it in at the time that it's actually occurring. To bring it back up 2 or 3 days later after it's occurred, then we can't take any law enforcement action. So as it's occurring in those moments, go ahead and make that call to our communication center so that we can get officers that are on shift in that area. That area is one of our targeted locations for our traffic enforcement and our violent crime suppression, just based on the complaints that we've received from the community and from board of directors.
And so, Director Wright, one thing I do want to just kind of commend Chief Haskins and her team. I've asked them to reach out to some other cities and kind of figure out what they're doing because Little Rock is not the only city experiencing this right now. That is a fact. I've been talking with some of my peers in some other cities, and there is, and what Chief Haskins was sharing, I know everyone kind of perked up. She was talking more about the state legislative process, not the caravanning ordinance that this board has already passed. So her team has done some research and shared some different cities and what they're doing. Ultimately, Director Webb will recall, I think back in a few months ago, when the legislative session, we kind of talked to some of our legislative friends, and there was not an appetite at the time to take on one of the pieces of legislation that we need from a state perspective. And so for those in the room, great example, if you speed in Atlanta or Dallas, Texas, by the time you get back home, you will have a ticket because they have license plate readers. And so back in 2006, if my memory is correct, I know Director Webb was there or just coming on as a state representative. There was an attempt to have a license plate reader legislation, and long story short, it never survived. We tried to bring it back. There is not an appetite at this time. There will be a special session. I've asked LRP administration to kind of bring forth other legislative items that we could pursue. And that's what Chief Haskins was referring to, the city attorney. He's been reviewing some of those things that we can kind of bring a legislative package. Of course, we'll need to visit with the appropriate legislative leadership to even see if it's included, and because it'll be a special session. That's not necessarily exactly something that we know will be successful or not, but at least when there comes another legislative session, we know we definitely desire to have license plate readers. I think Chief Haskins has shared before, in some cities, when investigation is taken on and you catch someone in the act of doing it, the vehicle is impounded until the court date, not when you pay the fine the next day. And so a lot of those kind of state measures will be very helpful to us. And that's something that we'll be pursuing. So I just want to thank Chief Haskins and her team that's been doing that research on the state side. And I want to thank the city attorney. And we hope that we can get some of these pieces of legislation at the upcoming special session. That is, as we know, once an agenda is set by the governor, he or she tries to keep that very tight. We'll do our best to see if we can get that included. If not, at the next available legislative session. But those are some things that helps LRPD in this process from that standpoint. Director,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Haskins. Chief Haskins and Chief Finks, I'm going to come back. I want to commend you guys on some other things later, but we want to get with to carry on. Director, I think it was Director Adcock already is gone. Vice Mayor Hines.
Thank you. Again, earlier when Chief Hubbard was, I've got a couple of questions for Chief Hubbard on this recruiting class and some stuff kind of on timelines.
Sure, Chief Hubbard.
So Chief, you said you got 29 recruits in class right now?
That's correct.
When is the training class over with? When do they graduate?
The class is in July the 9th.
July the 9th. And so once they finish class, then they're still not a firefighter, right? They're still a recruit because they have a 1-year probationary period?
They're considered our probationary employees, correct?
Okay. So, and then they're also required to have their EMT qualification, correct?
That is correct.
Do you know how many of the 29 coming out already have their EMT qualification?
11.
11. And so they've got 1 year, the rest of them, the other
18.
18 have till the end of the year to get their EMT qualification, correct?
They have until their anniversary date of March 29th,
Okay.
2022.
So what's our historical washout rate? Because I've heard that getting an EMT qualified, and I know because I'm on MEMS and with their EMT classes and their paramedic classes, I know what's required. How many how many do we expect of this 29 that are going to make it through the probationary period and be force effective at the end of that anniversary date?
Director Hines, I'm confident all 29 will make it. Just speaking historically, from the last 2 classes in which we utilized this pattern since 2019, we've had 100% success ratio with our EMT classes.
Okay. And the other question is, I wasn't asking a question about vacancies or talking about vacancies. I get it that you're full up on vacancies. I'm talking about force effectiveness with how many firefighters we have on the street every day. And right now, we're 34 short, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
Uh,
that's the only question.
Yes, sir.
We're not going to sit up here and play funny numbers like we did with LRPD, because the question that Director Adcock asked before was that we were short on who's showing up for work every day. We know that the vacancies are filled and what those vacancies are. But when you've got recruits in class, they've got a 90-day probationary period. And that's what I'm trying to paint a picture of. That's why I'm telling you. And, and I don't understand how we know basically what the attrition rate is. I've heard because of COVID, we've lost a lot of firefighters. We've lost guys at EMT. COVID's had an impact on our recruiting. But did you declare the current civil service recruit list canceled or invalid? Did you send a letter out to all the recruits on that list that we weren't going to hire any more people from that list?
There was a letter that was sent out to all of the persons that applied that were on the list, that we were going to do that process. We were going to submit they would have to submit new applications. There would be a new application process.
So are you aware under I think it's the current state civil service code that you cannot create another list until until I think it's March of next year? Because that list is valid for a year. You can't just do you understand that?
I do
Director
understand
Hines,
that, sir.
Director,
Director, I'm trying to paint
I'm
a
speaking
picture.
right now. Director
Ma-
Hines, you
I
are
have-
acting
I
as
have-
if you are on staff. You are being very accusatory to our team members. That is an executive decision.
That
Clearly,
is
the
not- that
information
is
you,
not accusatory.
I'm still speaking. Clearly, the information that you've been receiving has been accurate, and I don't know what picture you're trying to paint, but your information is inaccurate. And you
But
have
you
been,
just said
you've
he
been
sent a
very,
letter out to that list.
and
man.
you've also been very disrespectful to Chief Hubbard. So I ask for you to have a little bit better decorum.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Director Computers.
Two things. The first is, when are we going to start looking at our health care for next year?
Next month. And actually, I don't know if our Chief People Officer, she's here, Stacy Witherell, may want to give an update. She head out? She may head out. But it starts in July. We've already been working on it.
And I hope we're looking this year seriously at self-insured, but
We are.
okay. The second thing is,
And actually, Director Computers, just to give you a brief update, that's one of the main things that's been tasked of JTS Financial, who's our new individuals, focused on that. They are looking at, we are all but there, and we're making room from the reserve standpoint to get there.
okay, good. The second thing is that if you read the paper, this new variant in the state of COVID is wreaking havoc. And I've already gotten in trouble according to Lance, but there is a real problem with the number of people vaccinated and the fact that this new Delta variant now seems to be affecting, probably 7, 10, maybe 13% of people who have already been vaccinated. They're not as sick, but the number of people in the hospital is going up. Searcy's a hot spot right now. The people in Joplin, Missouri are having to ship patients out because they're overwhelmed with the surge. Be careful, wear a mask. If you go inside, wear a mask, because we're getting ready to have another problem here. And the biggest issue, again, is not PPEs, it's not respirators. It's that we have nursing and hospital staff that are absolutely worn out. They're doing the best they can, but they're not going to last long. And there's a finite number of people that we can take care of, and it's a real issue. So be careful personally and encourage people to be careful. And if you hadn't had a shot, I would tell you to have a shot.
Thank you. And Director Computers, as chairperson of the COVID-19 task force, if there's any other things that we, in addition to those you just shared, please share with us that we need to implement, because we hear your concern. We've got a couple phone calls about some people standing COVID-19 units back up. And so we definitely hear their concern. Thank you so much, Director Computers. Director Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to tell you a little story. We have a improvement district in Pecan Lake that they've been before the board a number of times, changing folks that are on the board, et cetera. And now they have come together and decided to expand the board to 5 people. And they have already internally elected those 2 people that are going to fill the board. Mr. Carpenter's had their information since the end of April. And I've asked him to look into that. And as of right now, I don't have the real resolution to whether or not they have all their stuff together. Can they move forward? Can it come to the board? So I'm asking you to give him some time so he can look at that and give me that information.
Director Warwick,
He manages his own time.
as I tried to write to you on Friday, I did not have the assessor statement. I was given some materials when I returned from vacation Monday, and I do think I've got the assessor statement. What the board's going to have is we've got a problem with the statute because it requires a majority of the property owners for some size districts, and it only requires 10% for others. So y'all will not only need to look at expanding the board, but also the risk as to whether the statute that they're relying upon is unconstitutional. But in terms of getting the ordinance together and having the hearing and letting them go forward with that on Tuesday, that would be fine. I thought it was good. I didn't make it clear that thought we should put that on the agenda, but if we want to do that Tuesday, that's one that we will have ready to go.
Okay, is it appropriate then for me to suggest it be on the agenda? Have I met the criteria for the 2 weeks?
You haven't met the 2-week criteria, but you've also got a statute that says you do this when you get the information and you can verify it.
Okay, so you're saying they're ready to go?
As far as I can tell, with the exception that the statute got amended in a way that's favorable, but may not be favorable. I
So
can't answer
I
that
don't-
question.
I
Only a
don't
court could be
think
able to
you
answer that
suggest that you
question.
vote on it if you say that it's not.
I'm not going to be able to answer that unless and until somebody challenges it and the court says that that's going to be a decision for an appellate court.
Okay, so you're saying go forward. Well, I'd like to have it on the agenda for Tuesday night. This has been a long, drawn-out thing for them, and they're ready to go. So if it's okay with the board, I would like to do that Tuesday night. And are we going to have 2 ordinances, one to expand and one for the,
I think you can do that in one.
in one ordinance?
I think you can do that in one. You may want to do the ordinance that expands and then have a resolution with the 2 new appointments. That's often done.
Okay, and you've got all the information that you
all.
need. We can go forward.
I think I should own a home in Pecan Lake now because I've been reading so much about it.
It would be a good home.
I think
Yeah.
it would.
If you want to move there, it'd be a good place. Okay, well, thank you so much.
So
Appreciate it.
what am I expecting from the attorney's office? An ordinance and 2 resolutions or just an ordinance?
An ordinance and 1 resolution making 2 appointments. And you may just get 1 ordinance.
All right, before we conclude, I'm going to give a couple.
I have.
Oh, I'm
hand-
sorry. With your
I
hands.
have one final question for Mr. Moore.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Moore, we're extremely short-staffed at West Central. And one person told me that it's going to be July 19th before they can start because of background checks. Why is it taking 2 and 3 weeks for a background check?
In this time period, during the summer, we hire a lot of people. And most of them, depending on what job it is, has to go through a background check. And we have to pay for them. And it takes a little while in order to get them all through. So it's not only parks, it's zoo, it's public works. We got 2,500, and not all of them are going through a background check now,
Exactly.
but now that we're sort of coming out of this, even though we might not be coming out of it, we are hiring, and it just takes a little while.
do we have a background check organization under
We do.
bid? May I have a copy of who that is? Cause I'm just curious. This is ridiculous. Just like they're paying a lot of overtime, we can't pay overtime. And so you got staff that's overworked because you only got 5 people trying to handle a rotation. 3 weeks is ridiculous for a background check.
Mr. Moore, if you will follow up on that. Just as we were talking through recruiting, wanted to share on the fire standpoint. I know we have a class of approximately 11 officers that will graduate here in the next week or so, and then have another class that will hopefully graduate in August. I believe there's somewhere between 15 to 18, if my memory is correct. Wanted to share that update with the board that we have a graduating class in July of 11, somewhere around 15 to 18. I'll get that specific and email that out to the city board. I'll get that to the city board out tomorrow. We do know as a result of retirements, I want to make sure I'm sharing that with everyone. There will be some retirements, most of which on June 30th. So on July 1st, as we understand, numbers do fluctuate as it relates, as Chief Hubbard shared, between attrition and graduation and things of that nature. So I want to make sure you all have an update. We have 11 graduating in July, somewhere between 15 to 18. I'll get that exact number to the city board that are expected to graduate in August. As of right now, we have a few that are going to graduate. And of course, someone can make a decision tomorrow because what they call unannounced retirements as it relates. But based on what we know about lot fee, and lot fee is the retirement pension fund for most of our officers. There's also an older pension fund that some officers are on that happened prior to lot fee. And I think Director Warwick may know a little bit more about that particular one than I would, but there's not that many officers a part of it, but they are. Long story short, generally what happens to take advantage of some retirement benefits, it'll happen on June 30th. So today's June 29th. So we expect to have some of those retirements tomorrow from that standpoint. And so as of June 14th, we have 43 vacancies as of June 14th. We do know there will be some retirements on June 30th, but again, when you add back the numbers of 11 and 18, so just want to make sure everyone's aware on one accord, and we'll get that those specific information to you. But I always want to make sure you all are aware of the accurate information. Moving from that, I'm not going to ask them to come down, but I do know Assistant Chiefs Haskin and Finks are here representing LRPD leadership. Each week, we tend to get information and data as a part of it, things that are going on from a violent crime standpoint. I think everyone saw the impact and the results of Operation Ceasefire with the 61 arrests that happened a couple weeks ago. I believe even Director Phillips acknowledged that last week. But one things that I pay attention to is looking at trends. And so looking at the trends, and I want to just commend Assistant Chief Finks and Haskins and all led by Chief Humphrey and all the LRPD leadership and the men and women of Little Rock Police Department in the midst of dealing with caravanning as well as with violent crime. From May 22nd to June 28th, violent crime reduced from 22% to 10%, 22% to 10%. I know we often forget it when if there's a next homicide to happen, but when you look at the numbers from May 22nd to June the 28th, it was driven down from 22% to 10%. So I want to take this time and acknowledge the leadership and the men and women of the Little Rock Police Department. That being said, meeting adjourned.